Kreskel. Kreskel ventured to a remote cave to meet their contact. It was on the border between the Reisig and human lands. A shell of surrounding sand disguised the backside of a cavern's entryway as a small dune. Slowly, Kreskel retraced their steps down the familiar path. Darkness eclipsed the sun's light as Kreskel proceeded farther downward. When it became too difficult to focus, Kreskel traced the 2 forefingers and thumb of their left claw along the cave's edge. The path wound in a single tight spiral until it opened up into a blind abyss.
Your sand sparrow delivered its note. What is your news?
Kreskel asked into the void.
I have come with suggestions.
By the contact's raspy voice, Kreskel had known it did not belong to a Reisiglai. If Kreskel had to guess, it sounded human, but the being didn't smell human. Considering the smell, Kreskel recognized it was unfamiliar. Perhaps a foreign human? If the contact hadn't been so useful, Kreskel might have tasted it. Although, the creature could have been Harpy or some other race, and the last time Kreskel ingested Harpy blood, its bitter flavor lingered in their bloodstream for a full turn of the moons afterwards. Clarifying, Kreskel asked,
Suggestions?
A rolled piece of parchment gently slapped the side of Kreskel's forearm. Kreskel turned their claws over to grasp the roll.
What is this?
Kreskel tried to eye the paper.
You shall see in the light. Now, be gone.
Kreskel hissed, but clutched the parchment tighter and bounded up the slope of the cave toward the entrance. And their scuttle up the spiral. Kreskel scraped against the cave wall until the path brightened. Eagerly, Kreskel looked at the scroll. The paper contained a map and some writings of dates near markers. The meanings didn't come to Kreskel immediately. They folded the roll and shoved it inside their excessively baggy trousers. Kreskel wouldn't want any other Reisiglai in the nest to spot it before they could explain the notes. Kreskel scampered on all fours across dunes to return to the nest. The boiling sand blistered the bottom of their flesh of their lower claws, and they hastened. Kreskel turned to check if their contact would emerge from the cave, but no movement stemmed from its opening. After they lost sight of the cave's aperture, Kreskel focused their attention on the nest. A turn of the suns later, Kreskel slowed to the nest's entryway. The nest was too primitive for Kreskel's liking. A massive stone jutted from the ground and backed up into a system of tunnels underneath it. Under the top side of the boulder, the gathering area had been paved with sandstone fragments and sectioned off with wood scraps. Kreskel knew the guard on duty and greeted them as they entered. They returned the gesture, spreading their claws gracefully away from their thorax with a slight nod. The shaded stone of the nest cooled Kreskel's inflamed toes. Few mulled about this time of day. One group gambled with a deck of dragons over a pale linen shirt. One of the hide patterns was unfamiliar. It was an ugly green Kreskel would not care to see around the camp.
That newcomer should win the shirt to cover their discoloration.
Kreskel felt displeasure with themselves. They could not be so picky on flesh colorings, especially when the nest was actively trying to increase its numbers. Kreskel scurried to their private burrow, unburdened by conversation on the way there. A stray sunbeam found a crack to enter the space and illuminated the stack of rocks positioned underneath of it. Kreskel used the pile as a pseudo-desk. Sprawling the scroll along the largest flat plane, Kreskel examined the scribblings on the parchment in detail. After scrutinizing the writings again, they understood the connections between the dates and the locations. A few notes provided essential details about several of the sites as well. Kreskel memorized the details for the first few raid suggestions and retired to their woven cloth burrow to rest before the day turned to night. A flesh irritation woke Kreskel. They moved a clawed hand to their calf and found a prickling leech attached to their leg. Annoyed, they ripped the evolutionary ancestor off, opened their fanged maw, and swallowed it whole. Inky blue blood trickled down and tarnished one of their bedding cloths. They cursed and used the ruined fabric to wrap up their wound to prevent the bottom hem of their trousers from becoming stained as well. With the bandage secured, they left their burrow to provide the raid suggestions to Gregon. As Kreskel arrived in the main planning area, Riai was providing their own counsel on how to avoid drawing the attention of the Reisig city-state's governors.
Kreskel, perfect timing,
Gregon said.
I would like your opinion on this. what happened to your leg. Damn parasite.
Kreskel moved around the planning spaces to have a better view of what the dozen other Rhysogli focused on.
We need to move out of the caves.
Riai said,
It would be best to lie low, especially after the hunt at Fagori. We all fed well. We can wait to feed again. If we are too brash before we have the proper strength, we will bring the full wrath of the humans before we are prepared to take it. Along the same lines, the Rhysogli from the city-states want to maintain their treaties with the humans, so if they receive word of our activities too soon, then they could also decimate our nest.
Kreskel recalled the directions from the scroll.
I disagree. We've grown strong. Word spread after Fagori, and new Rhysogli have joined us. But the new blood will not be satisfied with empty promises of future hunts. If we want to retain them, we need to demonstrate our dedication. We have outgrown what this nest has to offer. We need to procure resources. Living in the comfort of an oversized rock is unacceptable. We need to show that we can hunt, and we don't have to sacrifice our standard of living. Once we have achieved that, we will achieve the necessary numbers.
Gragon seemed to weigh the two options.
When and where would the two of you propose for the next hunt?
The leader asked. Riai glanced around the room, looking at each set of eyes in turn. In Riai's hesitation, Kreskel took the opportunity to propose their offer.
We should strike Fagori again. They are weak and we are strong. We can afford to be brash. They'll never expect it. In this next round, we could easily enslave the entire town. Then we could claim their town as our first asset. Settle the human land. That's the fastest way to draw the attention of their monarchs. The Sovani forces would cut us down immediately. A random raid may go unnoticed. If we settle a town, that will direct them where to strike, Riai said.
Kreskel finally appreciated the genius plan that the contact had established. Kreskel relayed the outline to the assembly.
We won't settle it. We'll just draw their attention to Fagori while we plan another hunt. We could dismantle the structures and bring the materials and blood slaves back to the nest. That will solve our resource problem. We'll make them focus on one target as another town disappears off the map. To maintain structure, we will have to recruit more. We'll need assistance in building up our nest and keeping the slaves in line so they don't run off and warn the others what awaits them. With improved amenities, we'll attract additional support, and if we're bold and show we are a force to be reckoned with, then we'll receive the support we need. We should skip Fagori and shift our next target to a Hogenson village after a slice of a season's time.
Riai sent a challenging look to Kreskel.
We don't want the humans to overreact. So far, they know a single attack has occurred. In their minds, perhaps a rogue group was passing through. Or perhaps that rogue group has settled in the area. If we attack again now, they'll think it's the second scenario. They'll send forces to silence us.
Kreskel did not understand why Riai hesitated.
It was so obvious. My contact planned the progression of the hunts brilliantly. I need Riai to understand that. Humans are stupid. Why does Riai believe otherwise? Post-feed, those from the city-states are significantly weaker than we are, and they wouldn't band together for such trivial hunts. The leaders of the city-states would shrug off humans' concerns until our band has enough time to gather sufficient forces to develop into a full-fledged clan. When did the plan change to enslave humans?
Riai asked.
Wasn't the intention to pursue the hunt, not cultivate a herd? We can do both. I have a good feeling about conducting another raid on Fagori, and soon we will weaken them again and enslave them after so they cannot send messengers to communicate their concerns to their crown, Kreskel said. But it is imperative we take entire towns all at once. You're assuming they haven't already alerted their monarchs. Humans are feeble creatures. It would be difficult to cross the deserts to their capitals. It would take time, too. Chances are, if they did send an envoy, they've probably died. Additionally, what king would send a force after just one attack? As you said, they may attribute the raid to a passing threat.
What if they have a mage among them with the ability to cross distances quickly? Riai challenged.
They could disappear out from under us to warn of a second attack. In a town that size, I doubt it. Few humans possess innate magical abilities, and they usually flock to the cities. I would take that wager.
Fagori's weather is clearly different than the surrounding desert. It indicates they have a weather mage, even if it is a small town. I would not dismiss the possibility they have additional mage classes. Riai seemed as frustrated as Kreskel felt. Ultimately, it was up to Gragon to decide the fate of the nest. If Gragon chose to wait, then Kreskel would slam the stone slab so hard it would break in two above the whole band.
We cannot waste this opportunity. We have to act according to my contact's directions if we wish to succeed.
I see the wisdom in both plans. However, I want to contemplate this for a slice of the night before deciding. I will have my decision made by second moonfall. Riai and Kreskel bowed their heads to honor the decision of their leader. The others in attendance whispered between themselves, divided between the strategies. Kreskel would have to win over the others individually. If everyone believed this plan was in their best interest, Riai might change their stance too. First, Gragon would have to be convinced.
Can I speak with you, Gragon?
Kreskel asked, creeping into the leader's private quarters. Kreskel, you may always have my attention, they said eagerly, looking up from a tiny wooden, human-sized desk. It was one of the only pieces of true furniture in Gragon's burrow.
I wanted to discuss the future strategy further with you. I didn't receive a chance to say everything I wanted to about it.
I'll hear you now, Gragon confirmed.
We can recruit the additional rice supply that we need to make an entire empire.
How? We are a growing band of 36. How do you envision enlisting enough for a full army, let alone a clan?
We'll have to leverage our contacts in the cities. We'll need them to act as informants and help us when possible. They'll keep an eye on the governor of each province, take note what their policies are, and pay attention to the public opinion of them. For provinces that stand on sandy foundations, we'll spread our message of a better, freer way of life out here. Slowly build up our reputation by word of mouth. If our actions divide the cities, all the better. We could even bribe the printing press workers and distribute posters to the citizens.
Kreskel presented the long-term plan, inspired by the notes on the map.
We'll give some of the slaves to our spies as payments for their services. Although the spies might not legally sell them, they can drink off them what they will. A variety of options isn't a bad proposition either. That alone might put the blood slave owners out of business, once our numbers have grown large enough.
Gragon mulled over the possibility. When I worked in Kremos, I spent every heartbeat I could to save up to enter a tasting. Not even to be a taster myself, but for the honor of attending such a prestigious event. I toiled over linens for rotations. It didn't matter how much coin I made. It was always out of reach. I strived for 374 rotations to compete for the chance to attend one. Gragon released a scent to convey frustration in a manner beyond limited words.
What happened after all that time?
Kreskel asked, knowing how stories like Gragon's ended.
The event's organizer took my coin and entered my name into a lottery for the chance to smell the aromas. My name was not drawn. You have my empathies. I understand how demoralizing those contests can be. I wasted nearly 400 rotations of my existence for the mere chance to experience the joys of the elites. A tragic waste of your time, Kreskel said, when you could have been seizing the life you wanted from the start. When you suggest that we gift the slaves to informants, I do not doubt we could entice a whole city-state to
follow us. And you're right, that will be how we grow. We'll need modern amenities. No one wants to live in a hole in the ground forever. Just like no one wants to fight the humans forever.
Then we build up the nest with the humans' resources. We ransack enough supplies and materials to establish our roots and build our own city, one that may rival the Rysik city-states. When more have joined us, we will suppress our sister cities until we overthrow their governors. We will rule over a new empire where Rysiglai are free to do as they will.
It is a brilliant idea. I'm confident this will succeed. I know Riai has yet to come around, but they will, after they envision the success we will have.
We can expand our population in other ways, too,
Kreskel said, drawing closer to Gregon. The leader hesitated. Would now be best for rearing hatchlings.
This will be our life. I will show you how committed I am to this.
Gregon released a scent of uncertainty for a moment before containing it. With nervous anticipation, they said, I would have you prove your dedication if you so wish. Kreskel shuffled across the sand to close the remaining space between them. Gregon rose from their desk. The two locked forearms and readied for the sacred dance of their race. Each released the stingers from their forearms. Simultaneously, they struggled to stick the other first. It was both a test of strength and an act of procreation. The two were off of their feet, falling to the floor, avoiding the desk, but belligerent nonetheless. Kreskel was determined to have the best possible outcome arise. After enough time had passed that it wasn't embarrassing for either Rysiglai, Kreskel allowed Gregon to stab them in the abdomen with their stinger, a heartbeat before Kreskel overpowered Gregon's other arm and stabbed them with their own. Gregon's stinger had hurt, but there was also a pleasure to it. Kreskel did not let the sensation distract them from their goal. The two were both paralyzed while the stingers drained their contents into the opposite creature's abdominal cavities. Once the opposite stinger had depleted, the paralysis would slowly wear off. The paralysis ensured the best possible chance of mating and a large clutch. For Kreskel, this dance would prove their dedication to the cause and persuade Gregon to pick Kreskel's plan. However, Kreskel knew it was also about affection for Gregon. When Kreskel could move again, they departed from Gregon's company by saying,
I hope I've helped you envision the world I believe your leadership can attain for our kind.
In the nest, Kreskel spoke to separate groups to assuage their concerns and to bring them onto their side of the argument. Whatever the other Rysiglai's motivating factors were, Kreskel played to them.
Whatever they desire most is what they would gain if they support my plan.
In the small groups, Kreskel did well to have them consider the idea, if not fully support it. Kreskel joined a group playing with a deck of dragons.
Good evening, all.
The group consisted of 6 Rysiglai: Alfor, Juka, Raka, Marana, Puya, and Sa. All their flesh colors varied in natural tones, conducive to hiding in the nearby savanna and desert environments. Recruited from the Rysik city-state, Shrugel, they joined Gregon's group together.
Kreskel, you had an interesting idea in there,
Alfor said, looking up from their hand.
We should take human slaves.
Not all of those in the card circle had been present for the proposition, so the statement intrigued the rest.
We want to improve our quality of life, do we not? Why not feast whenever you want, in addition to hunting whenever you want? Why not live the life of the elites and breed the best bloodlines you can? It would be foolish not to,
Kreskel advocated.
It'd be enjoyable to release the slaves to chase and capture them again,
Raka said.
A pounding heart is always more fun to drink from.
You can only do that a couple of times before they learn and stop trying,
Puya said, waiting on their turn to set down their card.
That's good, though. A crushed spirit makes it easy to keep them in line. We will need a large body of humans if we are to feed all of those who intend to join our ranks.
Kreskel looked at the card Sa had played. A dragon with a ring-tipped tail, hunting a small wyvern. Alfor played a forked tail, hunting another dragon. Sa threw up their claws in frustration at their loss of the round.
I'm all for the idea,
Alfor said.
anyone who isn't has dull fangs.
Marana said.
But striking the same town would be risky, like Riai said. It's a remote town. Few merchants routinely travel through there. There will be a large slice of the rotation before anyone tries to find it, and then they might think they've lost their way when the town has entirely vanished.
Kreskel pressed.
You are banking on the stupidity of humans too hard,
Marana said.
Humans become delirious from the suns. They'll believe they hallucinated. Humans break so easily. It's amazing they're still around,
Kreskel said.
Magic,
Puya said, exchanging a knowing look with Raka. Alfor gathered the cards and dealt them to include Kreskel for the next round. Kreskel's hand had a range of the suits. Dragons with arrow-tipped, ring-tipped, bar-tipped, forked, and pointed tails. The last suite that Kreskel lacked was the feather-tipped tail, which unfortunately was considered the highest-ranking suit. Within the suits, the cards were relatively low tiers, with the dragons hunting fishers to forest foxes rather than larger prey like maras and bears.
Kreskel, what are you wagering?
Alfor asked.
information.
The others groaned.
Guess Kreskel doesn't have any good cards then.
Raka muttered.
Otherwise, you'd offer up those trousers. This is a particularly good piece of information,
Kreskel said, unwilling to risk the only item of clothing they owned.
Let's play.
A pointed-tailed dragon hunting a butterfly basilisk started the round. A bar-tailed dragon hunting a fisher came next, which had been Kreskel's card. A ring-tipped tail with an auroch followed. A pointed tip with an auroch initiated the challenge between players. While the card had to be of equal suit and tier or higher to play, if either matched, then the players would have to compete in their own round, which left one player in the game and the other eliminated. They each had to pick a card, hoping it was higher than the other's card, but not so high as to show their hand or place themselves at a disadvantage later in the game, especially if they had to complete another challenge. Rana and Puya each had their cards drawn. Rana played a bar-tip dragon with a common eland, and Puya played an arrow-tip with a ghost caribou. It was close, but the eland won. Rana eliminated Puya from the game. The pile reset, and the group continued around the circle, dropping their cards strategically, trying to become the first to be rid of all of them without being eliminated. From time to time, the players would challenge one another if they were confident in their hand, and it usually worked out for the challenger. Kreskel had benefited from the piles resetting, but Kreskel knew they couldn't win the game. All of their cards were too low of tier. When it was down to 3 of them, Raka challenged Kreskel, but Raka had wasted their highest cards on other challenges. Kreskel's Forest Fox beat Raka's remaining Manul. Raka had assumed that Kreskel's cards would be low since Kreskel had only played low tiers the entire game, but the card had been high enough to win. It was risky, but less so than facing off against Saw, who hadn't wasted their highest cards on challenges. Down to Kreskel and Saw, Kreskel was going to lose. Kreskel's last card had been a fork-tailed dragon with a savannah rabbit. Saw played their highest remaining card, which was a parchment bat, and won the game, claiming the meager prizes, mostly metal coins, from the other Rhysegli.
All right, let's hear it then,
Saw said, unexcited for Kreskel's wagered information. While Kreskel only had to tell Saw, it wouldn't hurt to let the others hear. Kreskel still leaned in, close to the group, as if they didn't want the information to leave the circle. That was the best method to ensure it would spread like wildfire.
Before all of this began, I traveled to speak with the oracle, Hippopotame, and received a prophecy,
Kreskel whispered. The others leaned in as well.
Hippopotame claimed that I would help lead Gregon to establish an empire of Rhysegli, that we will unite the city-states, and that we will attain the lives we most desire. Together, we will craft a new age of the Rhysegli.